get here? What comes to wait on a lonely shore? I can see in your eyes, dear, it's hard to take for a moment more. We've got to burn the ships, cut the ties, send a flare into the night. Say a prayer, turn the tide, dry your tears and wave goodbye. Step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away. We can dance upon the heartache, yeah. So light a match, leave the past, burn the ships, and don't you look back. Don't let it arrest you. This fear of falling again. And if you need a refuge, I will be right here until the end. Oh, it's time to burn the ships, cut the ties, send a flare into the night. Say a prayer, turn the tide, dry your tears and wave goodbye. Step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away. We can dance upon the heartache, yeah. So light a match, leave the past, burn the ships, and don't you look back. So long to shame, walk through the sorrow, out of the fire, into tomorrow. So flush the pills, face the fear, feel the weight disappear. We're coming clean, we're born again. Our hopeful lungs can breathe again. Oh, we can breathe again. Step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away. We can dance upon the heartache, yeah. So light a match, leave the past, burn the ships, and step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away. We can dance upon the heartache, yeah. So light a match, leave the past, burn the ships, and don't you look back.
Today we have T for 2 on We Believe in Memphis. Stay tuned. At Christ Church, we believe in Memphis.
We care so much about the city.
We want to be an agent for change and an agent for good news in this community.
And we're investing ourselves in the needs of the city, trying to make a difference in this city.
I think Memphis's best days are ahead of it. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And Memphis is a place where you go together.
A child's zip code should not determine the kind of educational possibilities that child.
Well, you know, the great thing is we have a chance to change those perceptions.
Though Memphis is a very troubled city.
We believe in Memphis.
Yeah, we believe in Memphis.
Welcome to We Believe in Memphis. I'm Shane Stanford.
And I'm Maxie Dunham.
And we're so glad you've joined us today. We Believe in Memphis, of course, is a ministry of Christ Church, literally in the center of the Memphis metro area, telling the great stories of good people doing amazing things. And today's example of a couple who heard God's call to do something new in their community, and that's exactly what they've done. And of course, you know, Maxie, I can't help but think about a place where my family used to go for vacation. It was a little bit out of the way, but it was this beautiful grand hotel. It went all the way back, its history did, to the mid-19th century. In fact, it had been a Civil War hospital. It had been built as a hotel, but within just a few years, the Civil War breaks out, and it's made into a hospital. They make it back into a hotel, but one of the things they would do is that in the afternoons, you would have tea time. And I'm not talking about the golf kind. I'm talking about where you would go and sit and you would have scones and you would have your glass of tea or your cup of tea, excuse me, and enjoy.
Yeah, don't make me jealous. I want to go to that hotel.
It sounds wonderful,
It
doesn't
does,
it?
and it is wonderful. But when I started traveling a whole lot internationally, one of the things that intrigued me most in my many times in England was how tea was so important in the life of that culture.
Oh, very much.
Because it doesn't matter what your status is in culture, in labor, it doesn't matter. Everybody in England
they
has tea. I mean, they have a tea time.
And they really do kind of approach it as a reboot for the afternoon or for the day, that it's a chance to start over. It's a chance to kind of take a deep breath. And there's a lot of ills that they really, you kind of feel like can kind of be made well if you just take enough time to have some tea in the afternoon.
And they almost made it a sacred event.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. Well, and you know, this ministry that we're talking about today with Rick and Carrie Moore is called My Cup of Tea, and it's a great ministry that ministers in the Orange Mound area community of our city by helping young women to come together and find work skills and be able to help them just take really ownership of their own lives and their own journeys, and they use tea to do that.
Yeah, and I think our audience is going to be really surprised at the way this couple have integrated their commitment to serve a community with this dynamic.
Yeah. And you know, I think that we all could use some time to just slow down and enjoy the day a little bit more. And I don't think it wouldn't hurt any of us to have a good cup of tea.
It wouldn't. And Starbucks won't do that for
No,
you.
Starbucks will not do that for you.
Pardon us, Starbucks.
That's right. We don't want to make them angry, but you will find your cup of tea in the work that Rick and Carrie Moore are doing. So you don't want to miss this interview. So this is We Believe in Memphis. It's tea time. Stay tuned. Hey Memphis, I'm Shane Stanford, one of the pastors at Christ Church here in Memphis. We want to invite you to come and to be a part of all that God is doing in this fellowship, from a thriving children's ministry to an exciting student ministry, all the way through adult classes for discipleship, 12-step programs, a great nursery program, exciting teaching, and also worship and fellowship that brings you closer together. A lot is happening, and we want you to be a part of it. So join us for one of our services over the weekends at 4488 Poplar and be a part of what it means to love Jesus and love like Jesus together. Go to our website at christchurchmemphis.org for more information. Welcome back to We Believe in Memphis. I'm Shane Stanford.
And I'm Maxie Dunham.
And again, we're so glad you joined us. We're joined by Rick Moore with My Cup of Tea. Welcome to We Believe in Memphis.
Well, thank you all. We are very glad to be here. And
well, thank you.
Certainly believe in Memphis, and this is part of the reason we're in this business.
Sure.
And tea is a unique opportunity because when you sit down and have a cup of tea, you usually have a chance to communicate, talk with, get to know somebody a little bit better than knocking down a cup of coffee to get your morning caffeine going.
Well, I love the dynamic of your ministry, of the work that you guys are doing. Tell us about My Cup of Tea. What exactly do you guys focus on?
My wife and I wanted to help work in Memphis in an under-resourced area and looked and found a place in Orange Mound, and we rehabbed a house and made it a safe place to work, and then work with single women in the community,
sure,
teaching them about having a job, and then if they wanted to pursue it, we would educate them about tea. The crying need in most under-resourced communities is there's no jobs. They have to go somewhere to get it. Well, the job's right there. All of our employees live in Orange Mound, and we've tried to educate them on what it is to have a job and then how to manage your money. And then they know more about tea than probably all of us in Memphis combined. All the tea is imported from the Far East or from India. It's blended with some top quality blenders in Germany.
And you were telling, that was new to me. Now, the Far East, I sort of made those connections, because when you think of tea, you do think of the Far East. But you were saying that the best blenders in the world are in Germany.
Well, that's the folks we use, and we think they're extremely good.
That's what I'm looking for.
You take the real top end of the tea, the actual leaves. You don't grind up the stems and all that, and these fellows blend it into different flavors, and you test them. Some you like, some you don't, but we even have designed a couple. My wife and several of the ladies on our board have a real aesthetic taste for whether it's good or bad.
Sure.
I just want to get it blended and over here so we can then repackage it. But we teach these ladies how it comes in bulk. We teach them how to weigh it and measure it, put it in different bags or pillows. If it's making for a larger quantity of tea, you can sell it loose. But they have learned about tea, and when I first started working with these, I had no idea what any of these things were. My background is more administrative and financial than really knowing about the teas. But it's been an opportunity to give them work and employment in their neighborhood, which then would be invested back into their neighborhood.
Certainly.
And all of these women are single women. They function in a very hard environment to be a single woman in a poorly resourced area and raise children. So this gives them an opportunity to have extra income, and ideally they could build a resume and get jobs somewhere else, or as it turned out, a lot of them stayed there with us for a long time.
I don't want this to pass us by and to pass our audience by, because I really think what you're doing, combining self-sufficient business with serving a needy community, is really a great witness to this city. Because what you said earlier on, people in these underserved communities don't have jobs within their communities, and the transportation issue is a big issue, and also training is a big issue. So what I'm hearing you say is that you have established a business in a community, and you're serving that community by really exercising a good business plan. And I hope that will challenge people who are listening to this, because I'm sure there are ways that other businesses could establish themselves in communities like yours.
I'd love to see it replicated in other parts of the city. We're just working in the one community at the one location, but it has provided them jobs, and we try to make it a safe, working Christian community that they work in. And it's changed the lives of a lot of the women in there. So it's been real rewarding to see that happen. But there are a lot of challenges.
I'm sure.
But all of these women have assets that everybody seems to think if you're helping under-resourced, you need to meet their needs. You really need to build on their assets, on things
Sure.
that they can do.
Yeah.
Now, that's
better.
fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
And as it turned out, it's morphed a little bit on us. We have 5 independent contractor women now that have started working for My Cup of Tea, and when they're on our payroll, they're helping package, distribute, weigh the tea. But on their own, 2 of them, one does monogramming, another one does sewing. 2 of them, we have a little beauty parlor in there. They make wigs, and on their own time, they are servicing people in their community. And one lady is actually very good with her hands and woodwork. She's learning how to refinish furniture, old furniture, and make it where it's something they could sell, and then they get that. We don't get anything out of the independent contractor. That's additional money that they can have, which again goes back into their families and their community.
You've sort of given them a doorway to be able to expand their horizons.
Exactly, and it makes a lot of difference when a person feels like they're doing something
Sure.
that they can see, that's measured, that is a benefit, and it raises their dignity of life. It makes them feel more important rather than always getting a stipend from the government. Here's something that they've invested time, effort, and energy in, and they can see
Yeah.
that it's a return to them, which is really what you want to do, raise their level of living.
Now, is this a normal business plan, or do you have a, I understand that may
No.
be the funniest question of all, or do you have those who come alongside and help to partner and supplement the work of the business? How does that work?
We definitely need community support.
Sure.
We've had some foundations, some individual support. Tea is a perfect thing to teach folks with perhaps a long learning curve because it really doesn't have an expiration date. It isn't going to spoil or get
Sure.
stale. And so you don't have to have refrigeration. You can keep it on the shelf for a while. And when you sell it, people don't have to immediately use it that day. So
Sure.
as a normal business plan, no.
No.
But it is, you're trying to cover your cost. Ideally, we'd love to be able to cover all our operating cost on
Sure.
it. We're working at it. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but it is making a difference in the community and with those women. So it's worthwhile, whatever we're having to invest in it. And I think Memphis as a community feels like more things like My Cup of Tea have to happen in order for us to raise the economic viability of the whole community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the big issue, Shane.
Yeah.
We hear a lot, we hear all the time that there are jobs, a lot of jobs in Memphis that are not being filled because it takes a pretty high level of skill. I'm thinking in terms of area of technology. But what you're doing gets around that because you're in a community where you're training people as they are earning a living, and you're training them also to be independent because you've told the story of 2 or 3 who have gone off on their own to do these other things. And somehow the creativity of this city has to be called to bear in this kind of way.
And we've been blessed. Our church is Second Presbyterian Church, and a lot of the volunteers are ladies that come from Second Pres,
Sure.
and they spend time working with these folks, not telling them, we know what to do. We're going to work with you and build on what assets you have.
That's great.
So, and it was also my wife's idea, really, that what a wonderful way to break down some of the racial divide that exists in Memphis. If
Absolutely.
you get
Yeah.
people from a affluent, well-resourced church working in an area, neighborhood that is not, where you know the people in the neighborhood not as a group or as a person, but you know a Danielle, you know a Phyllis.
beautiful.
They are individuals
Yeah.
that you know and then develop a relationship with and spend time with. You got to spend time in that area in order to make it effective. If you just come in and flop down money or a business and walk back out, it's not going to be effective. So you build camaraderie,
Yeah.
knowing people.
A rapport.
A rapport.
Yeah. Tea may not be, pardon the pun, everyone's cup of tea. I'm sure you've heard that before, but helping someone reach new heights, experience new things, feel better about themselves. What a great ministry. Thank you for being a part of that.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate you all wanting to know more about it. We think it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's growing, and Memphis is supporting not only us, but things like this. And
That's great.
You have to do something to get it started.
All right. Well, Rick, thank you. And we're going to be back in just a second as we continue our conversation. My cup of tea in just a moment. Stay tuned. Of course, welcome back. And as we continue this conversation, I just, again, can't help but think about just the ease of what we said at the beginning of come and sit a while.
Well, the tea company itself was a bonus. We started 2 years before the tea arrived. We wanted to resource women in Orange Mound because we had wealth and we had longevity in this city and we had perspective and we're very old and have some time. And
I don't believe that last part at all.
well, we're plenty old, but in order to make an impact in the city, we had to really move into a neighborhood.
Sure.
John 1:14 was really one of the bonus verses. Jesus moved into the neighborhood, came to earth. And then the Lord just continued to give us the next step. So we bought property. Rick mentioned that. It had to be on a major corridor, and it is. And the only house that was possible to be a resource was in terrible shape. It was full of rats and pigeons and boarded up, but it was the right location. So we invested in that house and asked the men in the community to rehab it. Took about a year. And in that time, we were spreading the information among our friends that we wanted them to come along and be some of the resource that we knew women needed. I knew it had to be women.
Sure.
Everyone was more concerned about the children and the men that were missing. But the single moms were still rooted and anchored in the city, and especially in Orange Mound, the percentage of single women there is way above the rest of the city.
Yes.
So I just brought some of my friends who wanted to get involved, and we thought the need would be more interest in sewing and cooking and gardening, those kinds of things that we knew how to do, but the real need was work.
Sure.
And to prepare a resume when you have no work experience or a third grade education was becoming a mountain that we weren't really knowing how to climb.
Sure.
So Mary Beth Bryce, a member here, called me on Christmas Eve and said, I am going to sell my business and I think you should buy it. And I thought, good heavens, that might be the answer. And it was.
Wow.
We bought it for $10.
I love it. When
fantastic.
Rick mentioned that earlier, I thought, that's a price that's hard to pass
It
on.
is. If we would say anything to our peers, it would be take risks.
Sure.
There is so much to learn when you have to trust God. And so the next step was to learn the business, and we did. It took about a year. So then if a woman approached us with a need of work, we took her in and trained her. Her only restriction would be to pass a drug screen at the end of the training.
Sure.
So we have never really numbered how many, but I think we probably had 50 women come through that door. We have 17 employees right now.
Wow.
Employed now.
Employed now. We have one in the wings being interned. We have the 5 that Rick mentioned that are working for us, but still under our roof with an independent business.
That's
and
fantastic.
So they go off the clock and then are working. And their wares, if it's marketable, we help them market it.
I see.
It depends on what it is.
That is fantastic.
So tea, although it is I think a wonderful experience as itself.
Yeah.
But also as I was asking Rick, as a business plan, he kind of laughed at that whole idea. But you've made it into something that allows people to find their dignity, but also to find practical skills.
Yes.
And that those two things together, there's not much a person can't overcome if they can find those two things together.
Well, we never could have thought it up.
Wow.
It has really continued to transform. And I don't know where it'll be in 5 years. The women are very loyal to us. The majority don't want to leave because it's created a network and a family.
Oh, that's great.
It has also been a springboard for conciliation for two cultures. It has broadened the interest in tea just among the majority of the women know far more about tea than all of us put together right here. And that is a nuance that's ironic.
Yeah, and you were saying, and he was saying that women from your community at Second Pres and here in East Memphis, that kind of thing.
We have volunteers from here too.
Are coming in and they are having interpersonal relationships with that culture in Orange Mound.
Right.
That's monumental.
Well, it is.
Because one of the big problems in this city is that we don't have enough communion between this community and this community.
That's right.
This segment of our city and this segment, that kind of community and sharing is absolutely...
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
It really is. Someone brings lunch every day, and that provides just the fellowship around the table.
You mean they bring lunch for everybody?
Mm-hmm. We probably have 70 volunteers who are involved time-wise in different levels. I mean, we have some that are there 2 or 3 times a week and others that come just in once a month. Then we pair people up according to some skills and interests, and no one's pushed into it, but the majority know everyone.
Sure.
I mean, the majority of our volunteers know everybody there.
Well, it seems that, I mean, as you're building community, I have found that when you build community, you also, you broaden people's passion areas. People want to work harder. They want to be a part of, what's happening. I mean, this is just a great idea, and I love the spirit behind it. Both you and Rick have just a very sweet, humble sense about yourselves. The fact that you're doing this for your brother or sister who you've not met yet. You want to make the community a better place, and it begins one heart at a time. If you could say just one thing, though, to the person watching who's saying, I maybe can give a donation to help, or I might could give time, or whatever it might be, what would you say to them to kind of push them over the edge to get them involved?
Well, we're all gender specific. And we'll take money from the men, but we don't have any men
You don't have any volunteer places for men, but you'll take the men's money.
We'll take their money.
Hey,
okay, that's
all right too.
There is a riveting verse in Ezekiel that just nailed me. It's in the 16th chapter. It says that the sin of Sodom, I'm sure you pastors are aware of it, the sin of Sodom is not what we thought it was. The sin of Sodom was the arrogance, overfed, indifferent women were neglecting the poor.
Yeah.
And I had already committed myself to this mission, and then I found that verse. And so, because it broke me in two.
Wow.
And the Lord used that to fortify my assurance I was supposed to do what we were doing.
Carrie, I've found that most of us in society never, I tell people I don't know of anyone who gets up in the morning and says, today's a great day to ruin my life. I don't know those people. What I do know is we get up and we make one decision or the other. Maybe that decision is inhospitable towards another person or even ourselves, our own, in terms of having a better impact on the world. But when we can just commit ourselves to be faithful to one another, just to be genuine and authentic. And I can't help but think about, come and sit a while.
I love it.
It's not just about tea. That sounds biblical to me. And I think it's a great ministry. Thank you for thinking of it and being a part of it and for leading it. And we can't wait to have you back in a year and you can tell us how far it's gone from then.
Now, you do allow men to come and sit a while.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We have men coming through, but we
they'll
don't
take
put
your
them to
money.
work, and we'll take their money.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the chandelier.
Oh, yes.
Shall I mention that
Please
now?
tell us
Is there
about the
time for
chandelier.
that?
Absolutely.
There are 4 chandeliers made of teacups that dangle from the ceiling, and those teacups were given to us, or we found them in the back of a closet. The majority are cracked and broken, and we have strung them all up, and the ladies all have a different twist, a different interpretation of what it means. And so for me, it is the collection of so many varieties of beauty that are all pulled together with a single light in the center of it, which would be the light of truth and the light of love and Jesus himself. And we all are just hanging on together, bringing beauty out of little pieces. But to a woman, each one has a beautiful story of what it means to her.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, friends, you're going to hear no better teaching or sermon than that right there. That is a perfect illustration, I believe, of God's love. And I do believe God wants us to come and sit a while and be in his presence and experience the ways that we can not only have fellowship and community together, but then do something good for our fellow human beings. And so that's what Carrie and Rick have done, and that's what you can have a chance to do as well. So My Cup of Tea, keep that in mind. Information's on the screen if you want to support them, and certainly take some time out to go have a good cup of tea.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right. Well, for Carrie and for Rick Moore and for Maxie Dunham, I'm Shane Stanford. Remember to go into the world and be salt and light. You matter.